All right, where do I even begin? I'm a 36-year-old guy, and my wife, who's 39, cheated on me. I don't have many people in my life to talk to about this. Splitting up seems impossible right now. Financially, there's just no way to make two households work, even with any state or local aid. It's just not feasible. Plus, we have 6 kids, all under the age of 9. One of them wasn't even a year old when she started this whole mess. My wife has always been pretty immature. She only hears what she wants to hear. She's a people pleaser, except when it comes to me. With me, she just takes out all her frustrations. Whenever something needs to change, she completely loses it. Looking back, I realize I've been the one keeping her life from spiraling into chaos, unlike her 2 sisters. One's her twin, the other is older. I'm not just throwing shade here. It's a family trait. They're all quite similar. I used to take pride in being the only guy in the family who hadn't been cheated on, and we've been together for almost a decade now. Now, I don't even know where to go from here. It's obvious when things started going downhill. She went back to work, and we could only make that work if she worked mornings, so we didn't need daycare. She would work from 4 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., and I'd head to work as soon as she got home. And it was at Starbucks, of all places, where things started unraveling. I'll get back to that later. She began bad-mouthing me to anyone who would listen. I'm not perfect. We had our fights. But she would take things to a whole other level. She would scream that she hated me, say I don't satisfy her, and yell about everything under the sun, all over the same few issues. Like, stop spending us into the ground. I lost my house that I owned when we first met because I had to sell it to cover the massive debt she racked up. She's impulsive with money. I remember when we were looking at getting her a second car, and I said we needed to leave the lot. She threw a tantrum, saying I did the same thing to get $1,000 off my car. We ended up selling her old car for way less than it was worth and getting a new one with an $855 monthly payment. It was a decent car, a top-model Mazda CX-9, but definitely not worth the hassle. That was just one of many reckless decisions she made. And then, there were the constant fights where I'd ask her to treat me better. She'd fly off the handle, accusing me of calling her a bad wife and a bad person. It would turn into these hysterical meltdowns because I suggested she needed to change. I'd beg her to listen to me, and she'd mockingly say, "Oh, I'll listen, but it won't fix anything." I'd ask her, "Change what to what? What's your idea of fixed?" It became clear she thought fixed meant never having to hear about anything she did wrong. Eventually, she started saying things like, "I wish I had cheated on you, and thank God I'm not pregnant with another one of your kids." Thank God indeed. She started her period early. She's usually like clockwork. The relief was palpable because by then, she was already cheating and looking for other men. There were 9 guys in total. She sexted 9 of them. They were all young, in their early to mid-20s, with no real careers, just a bunch of losers. The one she actually slept with, Lucas, even offered to be a submissive in bed if it meant she would keep seeing him. My wife realized how pathetic he was and called it off just before I found out, at least the sexual part. He got friend-zoned. It all started with one guy from work who dropped her. She spiraled and wanted more, so she turned to Snapchat, sexting random guys. She even met up with one of them twice, had sex, and gave him a blowjob the first time. Throughout all of this, I ended up taking care of our kids almost entirely because she was picking up extra hours. She would go out 3 times a week. I remember one particular day, February 11th, when she picked a fight while on a date. That's when I finally told her she either gives me access to her phone or I'm filing for divorce. The way she started that argument made it crystal clear she bailed on that date long before she actually ditched me. She called me, asking when I'd be home. I was a bit late because I had gone to the gym, and I was actually apologetic, offering to skip my workout so I wouldn't be late. She insisted I go, but then guilt-tripped me by saying, "I don't want to hear you complain about it later." I replied, "I can make my own decisions." "What are you doing?" She snapped back, acting like I was accusing her of something, even though I was just trying to figure out why she was picking a fight. She hung up on me saying, "Stop embarrassing me in front of my friend." I hadn't even realized she was with someone, as I couldn't hear anyone else. I called her back asking, "What is really going on? What was that about?" She then accused me of embarrassing her and said she wasn't going on our date anymore. I went to the gym anyway, thinking maybe it was best to give her space. She then tried to guilt me again, sarcastically suggesting, "Sure, I should drive to our date drunk and die." That's when I said, "We talked at 4:40 and it's now 5:15. You were already drinking before you said that. You're just too bad at lying to realize what you just revealed. I'll ask again, what's going on?" After that, she disappeared for an entire day, not coming back until 11 p.m. She could have been with Maya, a girl from work, bad-mouthing me. The Snapchat timeline confirmed she was out, but these attacks went on for a long time, and this incident made me finally demand her phone, or else we were done. Even then, I still didn't find out everything. She had a hidden app disguised as a calculator to store photos, and the texts on her phone were clean. We used Snapchat for coordinating about the kids, so I didn't think much of it. On the 16th, I logged into Snapchat and discovered someone named Beth in her contacts, with explicit sexual conversations. At first, I thought Beth was a woman. When I confronted her, she let me believe she had slept with a woman. I told her that if that's what she wanted, because this Beth had even suggested involving me next time, see above where Beth implied I'd get to be with her, then she should know that, while many guys might jump at that, I have 6 kids, and I would never do anything to harm them. That's not the kind of relationship I'm in for. I was committed. If that was her choice, my answer was no. In hindsight, I felt like a total fool, and she must have felt pretty low, realizing the kind of guy she was betraying. She allowed me to believe it was just this Beth and another guy, Jake, from work. She even told Jake she loved him. She shared moments with him, like when I got upset about my headphones, turning a minor argument into an excuse to vent to him. She had even asked me to bring her a towel, which she never does, just so she could angrily send a picture of herself in it to him, while I was apologizing in the other room for the headphone incident. I felt like a dog getting kicked around. I was the one looking after our 6 kids while she went out. That meant feeding them, cleaning up, changing diapers, and taking care of them on weekends when she worked from morning until 1:30 p.m. That included making breakfast, lunch, changing clothes, and bottles. Every night after I got home, I let her relax while I handled the kids, including giving them baths. I even took over all the cooking. I was doing everything while she did nothing but the laundry. And yet she trashed me to everyone. The woman who watches my kids actually encouraged my wife to cheat. When my wife asked for advice, this woman said, "If you're truly happy with Ethan, then don't. But if you're just looking for some fun on the side, why not?" No one stood by me. My wife had trashed me to the point where everyone was siding with her. She lied, picked fights, and threw things around the house as I uncovered more of her deceit. She physically attacked me too. There were times when she'd jump on top of me, screaming like a maniac whenever I said I was leaving. If I put my arms up to protect myself, she'd scream, "Don't touch me, don't touch me," just to get me to drop my guard so she could attack again. She once threw a knife and threatened to kill herself in front of our kids with it. Another time she threw cat food at me, which splattered all over the wall. I even got hit in the back of the head by an Xbox One controller she hurled in a fit of rage. One time, she threw a freaking slow cooker at me. Most of these outbursts happened after she revealed another lie, and I expressed my anger. While I usually tried to hold back, there was one time I couldn't. When she threw the slow cooker and accused me of treating her like a whore, I snapped back. "I don't think you acted like a whore. I know you acted like a whore." It was harsh but true. She gave a blowjob to that guy from Snapchat the first day she met him. She kept hiding men from me, starting with Jake and Beth, who was actually Lucas. Then there were 3 more, including another random guy from Snapchat. Then 4, including a friend of her ex. I later found out that some of her coworkers helped her get a guy's number, a dude named Max. There were also 2 guys she planned to meet online when she was supposed to visit Vancouver. She used the excuse of a sick family member to bail on a trip to see her mom, who had cancer, just so she could spend another night with Lucas. She even claimed this guy raped her, but she downloaded a picture of his sister the morning she left to stay at a hotel with him, on the same night she was supposed to be with her mom. Her family found out, and they were livid, thinking she had abandoned them during such a critical time. There are a few silver linings in all this. First, all the men she hooked up with were pretty ugly. Now she knows them the best she can do. And honestly, I'm bigger than all of them, which felt surprisingly good. The other silver lining? Even though she's crazy, I didn't just sit back and take it. I've been cheated on before, and I know that if you come off as weak or desperate, they'll just walk all over you. So here's some advice for any guys who've been cheated on. Don't beg them to stay. When she called me that day, crying about how I didn't understand what it was like to lose someone she cared about so much because Jake wasn't talking to her anymore, I just stayed silent. Eventually, I couldn't hold it in anymore and said, I don't understand what it's like to lose someone. Are you even listening to yourself? She kept going, and I finally had to shut it down. No, stop right there. You think I'm on this call, waiting for you to come home, because I'm hurting and can't live without you, struggling with how much I want you to stay. Consider this. It's the exact opposite. I'm not speaking because every part of me is screaming to leave. And then she hung up. She had been threatening to leave me for Jake up to that point. Honestly, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do then, but I knew I needed to buy some time, so that was my first move. She didn't buy it right away. Instead, she spent the night at a hotel with Lucas, I found out later, instead of visiting her mom. Even then, she didn't fully get it. My wife somehow forgot how we started, forgot who I was when we met. We got together because I had been cheated on before. The woman back then thought I was bluffing when I said I'd leave. I wasn't. I walked away. So in the present situation, I decided to find two women. Now I'm in pretty good shape, fit and not to brag, but I'm well endowed. I make good money and I've always been a provider. I'm the kind of guy who takes care of people and fights for them. I'm basically husband material. My wife made a huge mistake challenging me on this. One of the women I found was an Asian woman named Nina. Another was a girl who messaged me on OkCupid. I never caught her name, but she was stunning and knew how to flirt. She was into fit guys and had a thing for my body type. She wanted to date and told me all the things she would do for me if I just forgot about my wife. This girl was a solid 9 out of 10. My wife freaked out. But you know what happened after that? She went from losing it to begging me to stay. She stopped threatening to leave. I never really planned on doing anything with these women. It was all about making my wife see me from a position of strength, showing her that she couldn't call the shots or treat me like garbage, because I could and would do better. She tried lying more, thinking I wasn't serious. So, I found more women. One even said she'd inherited a 3-bedroom house and would be a mom to my kids if I left my wife. I showed my wife the text to prove it wasn't just empty talk. And get this, one of them was ironically named Olivia. My wife had used the name Olivia on a burner phone for her affairs. Talk about karma. She used to have a Olivia keychain, and when our daughter asked her where it went, my wife told her to ask me about Olivia. The irony was too rich. I laid down the law. I told her she was going to respect me. She thought I was weak, but I wasn't. I was undecided about what to do with her, mainly because of the finances and the kids. For now, we're just living together while I figure things out. I made it clear that if she continued to treat me like crap, I would have other women on the side, just like the ones I showed her. I'm so fed up with all of this. It's just nonsense. For now, I'm stuck. Once she finishes school and we get the tax credits, I'll end this. My wife slept with at least 2 guys, not just one, and certainly not just Lucas. Honestly, it was pretty obvious. I never believed she had only been with one man. I was aware of the ones she didn't meet because I saw the conversations. So this other guy was always in the maybe category. The funny thing is, I don't even care at this point. I'm ready to leave, especially since an annulment is almost a sure thing. I'll explain why as we go along. On January 14th, I took a day off work because our usual babysitter flaked out on us. My wife was panicking about losing her job, so I stayed home to watch the kids while she went out. Well, Google Maps became my new best friend. I checked her location history and noticed she went straight to Kirkland until 3:40 p.m. She works in Everett, not Kirkland. She had told her friend and me that she was working that day, and she even asked me for a few days beforehand if I could take the day off or if Sophia could watch the kids. I was still deciding whether to pay Sophia to babysit, but this was the first day she actually watched them. The first day, guys. And she cheats at literally the first opportunity. Now, normally that would be upsetting, but I already knew she had cheated before, so it's just more of the same crap. But this time, it hit differently, because this was on our second child's birthday. She planned ahead to have an affair on Aiden's birthday. While I was sending her videos of the kids, she was off having sex with some other guy. This one, I trapped her. There was no way out for her. She even had a note on her phone reminding herself to buy Plan B on January 14th. At first, she claimed she never got it. Then she said she took it for Lucas, but they didn't hook up until February 1st. The nail in the coffin? She started her period super early on January 19th and messaged a friend on the 16th asking how long it takes for Plan B to work. When I confronted her about it, she first denied it, then admitted she took it for Lucas, insisting he was the only guy. But the timeline just didn't add up. She finally confessed to seeing this other guy, but initially denied having sex. I called her out, saying she was with him for 4 hours, so stop lying. I laid out all the dates and the Plan B situation, and she broke down, fake crying with the typical cheater's remorse, trying to backtrack and bargain. She blurted out, "You can have sex with Ella. You can have a threesome with me, just don't leave." Ella is a girl from work who was cheated on and has a free pass in her relationship. My wife was desperate, saying she'd let me do whatever I wanted if I just stayed. I told her I didn't want random sex. And that's the truth. It's not who I am. This next part is so absurd, it's almost funny. Throughout January, my wife was messaging yet another guy online. This guy was showering her with compliments, calling her his angel, and professing his love. She was swooning over him. Just more of the same nonsense. What makes this even more ridiculous is that she claimed she lost money from her purse a few months ago. But no, this guy was actually asking her to buy gift cards and send them to him. My wife, in her naivety, sent hundreds of dollars in gift cards to a guy who was clearly catfishing her with broken English. Absolutely unbelievable. And here's the kicker, or rather the worst part. For those who don't believe in God or karma, this will make you think twice. On February 16th, the day I found out about her affairs, though I didn't yet know the full extent, a guy randomly messaged her, asking how she was, and saying he hadn't seen her in a long time. The timing was uncanny, right during the window when we were fighting about her infidelity. What are the odds? This guy, who had been out of her life for around 10 years, messaged her out of the blue at the exact time we were having this argument. The statistical probability of this happening is mind-boggling. I didn't reach out to him until the July 4th weekend. I wanted to get a sense of when he last saw her. And guess what? Without much prodding, he expressed his disdain for how her ex treated her. He referred to this ex by name, which helped me pinpoint the timeline since this was her last ex before me. Then, he casually mentioned how glad he was to have slept with her while she was still with Athantian, her ex. So it turns out my wife has a history of cheating on more men than she ever admitted. She lies about everything. This was the first significant piece of evidence that could potentially allow me to seek an annulment. In the church, if a partner lies about their past in a way that would alter one's perception enough to change their mind about marriage, it constitutes fraud. This can be grounds for an annulment. Initially, I had already discovered she lied about an ex named Jordan, her first boyfriend. She could argue that she was young and made a mistake, not a pattern of behavior. But this new revelation proved she had hidden a pattern of infidelity. This gives me strong grounds for an annulment, which is a relief. But there's more. The guy asked where she disappeared to after their last encounter because he never heard from her again. Curious about the timeline, I asked him when he thought they last slept together, pretending to be her. He mentioned something about coats becoming a thing, implying it was around fall. This meant there was overlap when my wife and I started sleeping together. At that point, I hadn't even considered the obvious implications. I was still under the impression that our relationship had been exclusive from the start, even though I had reservations due to her questionable behavior. This revelation shattered any remaining illusions of exclusivity and honesty in our relationship. After grappling with all the previous revelations, I decided to probe further. I asked the guy if their encounter happened as late as November. He confirmed it. Then, without prompting, he blurted out something that left me stunned. "So I might have a daughter then, eh? I mean, I did cream pie, you hardcore." This brought me to my firstborn, Chloe. She was born 2 weeks early, on July 18th, 2012, which happens to be my mother's birthday. Her original due date was my birthday, August 2nd. By calculating the timeline based on my wife's cycles, her conception date was around November 9th, 2011. My wife got pregnant soon after we started seeing each other. I asked him what made him think he might be the father. He explained that a mutual friend had told him about my wife's pregnancy roughly a month after they had sex, making him suspect the child could be his. However, this friend later convinced him that he probably wasn't the father, so he dropped the thought. This means that Chloe might not be my biological child. This is the worst-case scenario I could imagine. Chloe changed my life. We share an incredibly strong bond, and she was the first person who made me feel true love. She started talking early because she bonded with me and noticed my reactions. I have cherished memories of her speaking at such a young age because of our close relationship. She was my world when I had no world, especially after my dad passed away. Chloe got me through those tough times. My love for her and all my kids is immeasurable. If Chloe turns out not to be mine, this creates a complex and painful situation. She has 5 siblings, and the thought of them being around another dad or Chloe being separated from her siblings while with another dad is heartbreaking. However, there's a silver lining. If Chloe is not my biological child, this situation provides a solid ground for an annulment. In the church, hiding different fathers of children is explicitly listed as grounds for annulment under fraud. While prior infidelity might be up to the tribunal's interpretation, the concealment of a child's paternity is a definitive reason for annulment. It's a get-out-of-marriage-free card. On July 6th, I sent in a paternity test for Chloe with expedited results. I plan to do the same for the rest of my kids, especially concerning annulment issues, which mainly focus on concealment before marriage. I was already planning these tests, but they kept getting delayed. Now, it might be my way out. I've also realized that daycare assistance might expand through new childcare credits or tax subsidies under Biden's administration, offering a financial route out of this situation. This mix of bad and good news has been overwhelming, yet it has also brought clarity. It's still surreal, but I've processed a lot. This whole ordeal has changed me rapidly, in some good ways too. Today, a startling discovery unfolded when my daughter accidentally revealed that my wife has a second phone. Initially, my wife claimed she found it in a parking lot, but her actions betrayed her words. She quickly snatched the phone from our daughter and claimed she had thrown it away, insisting on this story even when I expressed my intention to retrieve it. Her behavior was calculated and suspicious, designed to prevent me from making a scene in front of the kids and her friend, with whom we were picking up the children. She knew that by creating a public situation, she could manipulate the circumstances to her advantage. Despite her efforts to remain composed, I was determined to get to the bottom of the matter. In the car, I insisted that we find the phone, but she refused to cooperate. As she continued to drive, it became clear that she wasn't being truthful. She likely had the phone hidden on her. Upon returning home, she reluctantly agreed to go back and retrieve it. By this time, she probably thought she had erased all incriminating evidence. However, when we examined the phone, I found that while she had deleted most of the texts, she had overlooked some photos and even left a subscription to Straight Talk Wireless dating back to April 20th. The pictures showed her at a house that wasn't ours, which further confirmed her deceit. Yet she continued to deny everything, asking faintedly, "What pictures?" It was clear that my wife was still cheating. She tried to downplay the situation, claiming the phone was for maintaining contact with Grace from work and Leo, a gay guy. However, the secrecy and lies surrounding the phone's existence suggested a different story. In a desperate bid to keep control, she even ambushed me at a pizza place, grabbing the phone and running off, trying to avoid confrontation. At home, the situation escalated quickly. Despite overwhelming evidence, she refused to admit any wrongdoing, resorting to her usual tactic of yelling over me. The tension reached a boiling point when she grabbed me and tried to force my hands onto her, shouting, "Hit me! Hit me!" I kept my hands locked behind my back, resisting her provocation. Her actions were not only manipulative, but dangerous, as she attempted to provoke a reaction that could have severe consequences. I warned her that if she didn't stop, I would call the police. She mockingly called out for help, pretending to be in danger, and then actually called the cops herself, perhaps thinking she could manipulate the situation in her favor. When the police arrived, she initially tried to downplay the incident, saying she just wanted some advice. The officers seemed ready to leave, but after hearing my account of events, their approach shifted. My wife, thinking she was off the hook, went outside to take out the trash. However, the officers soon returned and escorted her to the police car. Her expression changed from relief to shock as she realized the severity of the situation. She was being arrested. It was a surreal moment watching her get taken away, and a stark realization of how far things had spiraled out of control. The incident had a profound impact on our children. Our 2 older daughters were visibly distressed, nearly having panic attacks. The police informed me that my wife was being taken to jail. This outcome was far from what I had hoped for. I never wanted our family to be torn apart. Some might argue that removing the mother from the home is the best course of action, especially given her behavior. However, the reality is far more complex. Even in cases of violence, the impact on children must be carefully considered. The immediate trauma of seeing their mother arrested could lead to long-term psychological effects, and they might even come to resent me, believing I was responsible for their mother's removal. While studies sometimes suggest that children are better off away from harmful parental behavior, the practical and emotional reality can be vastly different. In this situation, the nuanced understanding and the well-being of the children are paramount. In the end, my wife's arrest added another layer of complexity to an already chaotic situation. I had hoped the police would simply issue a warning, but Washington's strict laws left little room for leniency. Now my wife has an arrest record, my children are deeply upset, and I'm left to navigate the fallout. It's a painful reminder that she likely had been cheating the entire time, using the second phone to hide her actions. This discovery has only solidified my resolve to find a way out of this toxic situation while minimizing the harm to our children. My wife has been released from jail under a protection order. Before her release, we had a conversation where she admitted to some of the things I already knew, but not everything. The truth that came out was both shocking and deeply troubling. The affair she's been involved in for the past 6 months wasn't with Lucas, as she had initially claimed, but with someone named Joe. I now have the second phone, her burner phone, that she used to communicate with him. On it, I found evidence of her deceptions. She had looked up gay porn, there were pictures of my daughter Ella sent to Joe, and all indications point to a sexual relationship between them. She's denying that they ever had unprotected sex, but the evidence suggests otherwise. It appears they may have even had threesomes, given Joe's bisexuality and the nature of the content on the phone. Her trial is scheduled for August, and the situation has been incredibly draining. She has been telling everyone how devastated she is not seeing me, but my own suffering is of a different kind. Managing 6 kids, 3 ferrets, a dog, hamsters, and a mountain of laundry while trying to keep everything running smoothly has been exhausting. On another front, the results of Chloe's paternity test are finally coming in. The update I received says the results will be processed within 2 business days, which means I should have them by Tuesday or Wednesday. The potential father, Joe, confirmed that he suspected Chloe might be his child. He had thought I would reach out eventually, but decided to check himself. Our conversation was civil, and he expressed sympathy for my situation. We agreed to discuss further steps depending on the test results, and he promised to handle things responsibly regardless of the outcome. During my wife's time in jail, her desperation was palpable. She repeatedly begged me to say I love you during our phone calls. She expressed profound regret and sorrow, crying and pleading for me to lie and tell her I still loved her. Her emotional breakdown was raw and intense. Despite her pleas, I maintained my stance, focusing on practical matters. I suggested she seek support from Joe or any of the other men she had been involved with to help with the kids while she was in jail. Her response was a mix of acceptance and further heartbreak. She admitted that she needed a man, not just a boy, referring to Joe's age as a significant factor. The circumstances surrounding her arrest were severe. Her bail was set at an exorbitant $100,000, likely due to her mentioning self-harm during her interactions with the police. They expressed serious concern about the safety of the kids, which influenced the bail amount and the conditions of the protection order. The judge ruled that the protection order would remain in place for 5 years unless I decided to lift it. Watching her break down in court was heartbreaking. I've never seen her so devastated. Her isolation and regret seem genuine, especially when I hear her breaking down while talking to Sophia, the babysitter. Sophia has been keeping me informed about my wife's emotional state, and it's clear she's struggling to cope with the reality of her situation. My wife is vocal about feeling alone now that I'm not there, although she seems indifferent when the other men are absent. This might be her wake-up call. Looking ahead, I've made some decisions about our future. We'll be living with this arrangement for at least 30 days. I plan to lift the protection order to allow her to return home to care for the kids, but I will be moving out. Sophia has filed for divorce and plans to move in with my wife once her lease is up. This unexpected development could be fortuitous. With Sophia's help, we can manage childcare more affordably. We'll compensate her for helping with the kids and contributing toward increased rent costs, which will balance out to a manageable expense thanks to tax credits. I've decided not to reveal my plans to my wife just yet. I want her to have this time on her own to reflect and come to terms with what's happened. When I do see her next, I'll make it clear that it's truly over. The last 5 months have been nothing short of unreal, and while the path ahead remains complex, it feels like the end is finally within reach. The paternity test results came back. I'm not Chloe's dad. She looks so much like me too. I'm too broken up.